From San Antonio, Texas, home of the Alamo, the Riverwalk, and the World Heritage San Antonio Missions, this is the Exit Planning Coach podcast with John F. Dini. Designed to help advisors who work with business owners, John talks with top professionals in the exit planning field about best practices, marketing tips, and how to be more effective when working with owners. Now, here's John F. Dini.
Hi, and welcome to the Exit Planning Coach podcast. Our guest today is Joe Gitto. Joe is a serial entrepreneur. He's a coach. He's a thought leader. He's a board member, a senior finance, sales, and ops executive with more than 25 years of success in various industries. Joe's built and sold 4 businesses, and he started Blue Sky Exit Planning to democratize the process for small business owners who are looking to sell their businesses. Joe understands the uncertainty and concern around planning for an exit, and each of his exits taught him valuable lessons that allow him to help small business owners avoid similar pitfalls. You know, it sounds like, Joe, you've been through the one school, as one of my clients put it: experience is what you get when you don't get what you want.
This is very true. That's a great line. I'm going to borrow that from you and your client.
So Joe's a CFP, a CIPA, and has passed all 4 parts of the CPA exam. So please welcome Joe. I've been looking forward to having you on the show.
John, thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you.
Great. What led to your decision to work with, well, selling your own business obviously led to. So how did you get started? You just went out and said, hey, I sold businesses, so I know?
No, it actually was something that I kind of backed into. So the last business that I had was a healthcare business that my wife and I were running. We had it from 11 to 19. And when I sold it, I was really trying to figure out what I wanted to do next with my life. I wanted to get back into the financial world, and I wasn't sure really what I wanted to do. I had run a very successful outsourced CFO practice back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And, you know, I was thinking about whether or not I really wanted to do that again. And I was really leaning towards financial planning. And then the question was, well, where do you fit in? What's your niche? And then I started thinking about all of my exits, right? Because all 4 of my exits were for businesses that were less than $15 million in revenue. And my wife and I were just chatting about, you know, the exits, the money we made, and what we wish would have went differently. And that's when the light bulb went off. And I said, you know, there should just be a better way for small businesses other than, you know, having to list with a business broker and no really getting that value creation, right? If you've got a 40, 50, $60 million business, you have people falling over themselves. They want to help you. They want to manage your money. They want to do financial planning. They want to sell you all kinds of craziness, but you're getting a lot of attention. If you get a business that's going to sell for $5 million, it's not a lot of attention, and there's not a lot of help for the business owner. And, you know, my niche is really working with blue collar business owners who are generally really smart. They're very good at running their businesses, not necessarily financially savvy, not necessarily aware of all the options that they have available to them. And I said, how do you make this affordable and yet give them that same level of service? And so that's how Blue Sky was formed. And quite honestly, COVID helped, because I had plenty of time to stop and think, because there wasn't a hell of a lot going on in the early 2020.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I tell people, you know, on the Exit Map products, we enabled them for remote use and released it in October of 19. And I said, you know, I'd like to claim that I was a genius, but I was just lucky.
You know what they say, it's better to be lucky than good sometimes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've interviewed a lot of business owners, and I did this a few years back just for fun. I interviewed 40 or 50 owners. And just when I met him, I said, let me ask you one question. If you could have a partner who was incredibly good at your business, but just wasn't very lucky, or you could have a partner that didn't know jack about your business, but was incredibly lucky, which one would you pick? And they all picked the lucky one every single time. Describe your typical first meeting with a new client prospect.
Sure, I'd be glad to. So I try to do things a little bit differently. And so my first meeting with a prospect is really all about them. I generally try to do very little talking. I really want to give them an opportunity to talk to me about their business, why they started it, how it's gotten to where it is, what their pain points are, and what their challenges are. And it serves 2 purposes, right? Most business owners, you're a business owner, so you know this, it's lonely at the top. You don't get to really talk about your problems to anybody. But more importantly, it gives me insight into the things that they're really struggling with, so that when it's my turn to share a little bit about my business, I'm not throwing up on them about all the things I can do, but I'm really laser focused on, here's where you're having pain points. Here's some thoughts about how those pain points could be alleviated. And so it starts to develop a relationship, right? Just a very active listening to a business owner starts to develop a trust level with them. And then when you can come back with something that's going to help them, it further solidifies that. And what I find that does is it takes you away from trying to sell them on you, and more putting you in a role as an advisor to them really early on, where they want to hear more from you and they want to get involved with you to work with them. So that first meeting is really them doing most of the talking.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I'm working on the exit planning coach handbook. I'm about 3/4 done, and there's a chapter in it called 2 Ears, 1 Mouth.
Oh, I love it. Nice. Can't wait for you to see that either, because we use your product in our practice, and we love it, and it's been very helpful to us.
Thank you. Well, and it's designed by a business owner for business owners. I know, and I tell people this, and you've mirrored it in your speech. No financial planner has ever been given the title of most trusted advisor because you beat the market by a 0.5 point.
That's true.
It's what you know about the client, how you work with the client. It's what is it? I've got a seminar coming up for BEI, and they said, when it's about when you talk to a client, it's not what you say, it's what they say.
That's right.
And how they say it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just what they say, it's how they say it. That's how you learn about them. When you're converting, besides listening, which I agree with entirely, what do you think is the most important factor when you convert a prospect to a client? What makes them decide?
I think it's 2 things, and it's really 1A and 1B. One is the fact that we spend a lot of time educating them upfront about what they should be thinking about, and what are the things that could go wrong and why they need an advisor. And then the other part is really establishing that trust, because, and you're a business owner. We have people coming to us all the time. They're always trying to sell us something. You always feel like people are reaching into your pocket, right? And
Sure.
Let's face it, we don't want to be sold, right? I'm sure you think like I do. When somebody comes to me, I want to know, how are you helping me solve a problem? I'm not interested that you need to meet a quota. I'm interested in how this is going to help me. And so that's really, I think, the way to approach business owners, is to show them how you're going to be able to help solve a problem of theirs, and then really laser focus in on the solution for that particular problem.
It's true. I just finished the sales training session with our business development coaches. And, the whole thing we emphasize is the way you succeed as a coach is by helping our subscribers be better coaches.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they're going to build the relationship. That's how they're going to get a lot of new business. How do you market for new business?
So I market in 3 different ways. We work with a business development firm that does an outreach on our behalf. It's mostly email campaigns. It's not inexpensive, but it's taken some time to get traction, but it's done really well for us. Our website is, and we're trying to make that more and more of an educational destination for business owners. And so we get some leads from there. And then thirdly is relationships with other professionals. Over the course of my career, I've worked with a lot of trust and estate attorneys, corporate attorneys, and CPAs. And so going out and telling the story, and that's how I initially started the business, was going after the third-party professionals. But you also then learn early on that you're going to scale to the extent that you can get out and actually see people. So but those are the 3 ways that we are currently, building the business. And now, we're about 1.5 years, really, even though we started this in 2020, we're about 1.5 years really into this business now, where it's starting to get momentum, and we're actually getting referrals from a couple of our clients at this point, because, business owners hang with business owners. And
sure.
So we've had a couple of referrals this summer that came out of the blue to us, which was a phenomenal feeling.
Well, that's a great segue into, one of our, one of the things we're missionary about is, this EPI survey back in 2013 and the PwC survey earlier this year, both of which said 75% of owners are very unhappy a year after. You don't get referrals from business owners that are very unhappy with the result of their transition.
That is correct.
So
And
why do you think I know why I think. I write about that all the time. Why do you think they're unhappy a year later?
it's because they don't have a purpose after they sell the business. Let's face it, we're used to working 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And it sounds really romantic to think I'm going to sleep without waking up to an alarm and I'm going to go out and play golf, but that wears old pretty quickly. And I can tell you from experience, when I moved to Florida in 2017, I had the entire summer off. And by the time we got to mid-August, I'm not sure who wanted to get going more, me, because I was bored, or my wife and daughter who wanted me the heck out of the house. But, but the reality of it is, and that's why part of our approach is really this very holistic approach where we focus on not only is the business ready, but is the owner ready to sell? What are you going to do? What is your life going to look like? And I think that's a really important part of the whole planning process, which a lot of the small business owners don't get that. And a lot of times their professionals aren't talking to each other either, right? Small business owners can be just as fault because they're talking to a business broker, they got the business for sale. And then when they get a check, they go to their financial planners. Oh, by the way, sold my business and you've got this to invest, right? And we like to bring the professional team together pretty early because we find that when we're exchanging notes and ideas, it ultimately ends up better for the client because we can save them money and create more value.
Sure. Although I want to clarify because I misheard you. So if anybody else misheard you, you said they have to think about what their life is going to look like. When you first said it, I thought you said they have to think about what their wife is going to do.
No, it is what their life is going to look like after that sale. How are you going to fill those 50 hours a week?
Yes. It's problematic and boredom is terrible.
It is. I can tell you a quick funny story. A few years ago, my daughter was becoming a sophomore in high school, and we went in, and her math teacher was 72 years old and just came out of retirement. And somebody asked him what made him decide to come back to teaching, and he said, "My wife said to me, I married you for better or for worse, but not all day. So you need to go find a job."
Yeah, right. Very much so. I'm going to take a break for 1 minute so that we can pay for the podcast. And then we'll be back in 60 seconds. And I want to ask you some questions about working with other advisors.
How would your practice survive if only 25% of your clients were happy with your work? How many referrals would you get? Would you advertise that success rate? Over the last decade, both the Exit Planning Institute and PwC have surveyed owners and found that 75% were profoundly unhappy a year after their exits. In 10 years, the exit planning industry has done little to fix this issue. Business owners need purpose, direction, and activity after exiting. Planning for that starts with your very first coaching conversation. We work with advisors who believe that clients should be happy after exiting. Exit Map is a structured discovery process that helps you have deeper conversations about client options, objectives, and life after the business. We help you launch better transitions. Take a test drive at exitmap.com.
Welcome back. I'm with Joe Gitto of Blue Sky Exit Planning in Orlando, Florida. And Joe, you work with a lot of other advisors. What do you do when you're working with other advisors, especially financial planners? Then tell us how they would reach you if they wish to do that.
Sure. So I think, when you're working with other professionals, it's important that everybody knows what lane they're supposed to stay in, and that the main purpose of this interaction is really for the benefit of our mutual client. And generally, I like to do debriefing meetings with the professionals at least every couple of weeks, or if there's a major event that should be happening, to let them know about it. But it's a great way also to build your business, because as you start to build trust with these other professionals, they start thinking about you for other opportunities that they're seeing in areas where you might be able to jump in and help them. But working specifically with financial planners, and that sometimes brings me a bit of a challenge because I am a financial planner. I am involved with an RIA in South Florida. But when you're working with other professionals, you make it clear that no one client is ever going to change any of our lives, right? And so we're doing a stand down if there's a work that comes from a financial planner. And right now it's interesting because if you look at the number of folks who are becoming CEPAs, the overwhelming majority are financial planners.
Right.
And most financial planners have never run a business. And so the question they really have to ask themselves are, if you really want to help your client and you really want to maximize the value of the business, what they're going to get for the business, which in the long run benefits them, right? Because they're looking to manage the assets, then
Sure.
It behooves them to bring in an exit planner who can really help their client to have a successful exit, and it'll solidify their relationship with the client, because clients are always appreciative when we can bring somebody else in with expertise we don't have that's going to help them in the long run.
Right. I like to go out to other professionals, because the National Exit Planner Survey said, I think 70% of exit planners said their number one source of referrals is other professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And when I meet with another professional, I say, tell me a client that you think should be talking about this. And we give them an assessment, but then I go and debrief the assessment in the other professional's office.
Interesting.
And well, it does a couple things. Number one is they're transferring their trusted relationship that they have already to you.
Mm-hmm.
They're telling the client, this is the guy. The second thing is, once we've been placed in that position, we're always that guy.
That's correct.
If the client says, no, it's not for me, it's not right now, it's not whatever, that's fine. When the time comes, and we know the time comes for everybody,
that's right.
You're the one that they're going to think of. Oh, well, Chuck told me to talk to this guy about this, and the other thing that comes out of it that's so great is when you finish doing a debriefing and you talk about all the things we talk about management teams and systems and processes and preparation on all different levels for the company. When the client leaves, the other professional goes, I've got somebody else that really needs to have this conversation with
exactly.
you. Yeah. So it works well. And I encourage everybody to focus on that area far more than just going out to business owners and saying, hey, I can plan your exit.
Yeah. And I think the key too is, when you're working with other professionals, give as well. Don't just always be on the receiving end, but make sure you're finding ways to refer back to them.
Sure. Refer back and make them look good too.
Yes, absolutely.
What is the biggest mistake advisors make when they're trying to close a client?
They push too hard. They try to sell the business owner versus, and we talked a little bit about this earlier, right? I think there's a lot more to be gained by going slow. It's kind of like dating. Build that trust, let them get comfortable with you, because you can't think transactional, in my opinion. This is more, it's relational. It's a very relational type of a transaction. I think you've got to build their trust, you got to gain their confidence, and you got to help them to see. They're also, they're getting ready to exit, but they still have a business to run, and they're working 50 hours a week, and anything that seems like it's going to add to their plate or becoming a distraction scares them. And so it's our responsibility to go slow, help them understand what the process is going to look like, why the process is important to them, and what it's going to get them at the end of it. And it is a dance. It's a slow dance. But I think if advisors are willing to slow down and not throw up all over the business owner with all the amazing things they can do for them, I think you'll have a higher success rate of closings.
I agree entirely, and we've proven it with our methodology on debriefings, which again is a 2 ears, 1 mouth methodology. And one thing I like to point out to other advisors, and of course this is a podcast for advisors, is if you make, I don't want to say outrageous, I don't want to say you're overrepresenting, but if you spend your time making claims about your performance, the next guy's just going to claim he has better performance.
Exactly.
That's not what you want to hang your hat on. I beat the market by 2.5 points last year. Somebody else is going to tell them they beat the market by 3. And if that's the only criteria you're giving the client to measure with, you're eventually going to lose.
Exactly. And, the reality of it is how do you make a claim for anything if you don't really understand what the client's business is and what the issues are?
Sure.
Right. So it's easy to come in and say, I can sell you business and I can get you this multiple, but do you really know that until you've dug in to understand where the challenges are and what the market is thinking of that industry at that particular time?
Right.
And that's what we always start out with, that educational piece. And, I know you've been on my website. That's why we broke it into 4 phases. It's very deliberate and it's very structured to help the business owner make that decision of, do I want to move on to the next phase and what's it going to get me, and help them see the path that they're going to go down.
Right. And yeah, we do everything in phases as well.
Mhm.
It's easier to define deliverables too. And after many, many years of consulting, I believe defining the deliverable in advance is critical.
Totally agree.
Otherwise, the scope creep will kill you.
Yes, exactly. And we don't work hourly with our clients either. We come in once we've got a defined scope, and we'll revisit it after 6 months, but we try to go in with a fixed pricing and a moderate success fee, because small business owners, you also don't want to gobble up a good part of what they've worked all their life for in fees. And so, to your point, I think when they can see very clearly, I'm going to get this and it's going to cost me that, they're more inclined to move forward with you.
Yeah. I personally do flat fee on the discovery part,
Mm-hmm.
and then retainer if they want me to do the value enhancement part.
Yep. Same here.
Just a monthly. And then again, I do put on a success fee if that turns into transaction support.
Same here. So we're upfront. It's a fixed fee for our phase one. We're using your product in phase two, and so we don't even charge for that. It's really go and take the assessment, learn what's wrong with your business. Let's have an hour consultation, and then the value creation phase, which is our phase three, is a retainer-based phase based on the scope of work, and then phase four is really take them through due diligence, negotiate a letter of intent, work with the other professionals on getting the purchase agreement, and then a success fee when we close it. And we'll take them out to our network as well. So very similar model.
Yeah.
And I think the business owner benefits from that as well.
I do too. And they like to know what's coming.
Yeah.
And they like to be in charge. They like, they're not afraid of making decisions. That's what they do all day long.
That's right.
You want to give them the opportunity to make decisions.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think is your biggest challenge when you work with a business owner?
It's the emotional part more than anything else. And I've been there. The first business that I sold it for more money than I would have ever thought I was going to get as a kid growing up in New York, right? And the weekend that we went to clean out our office, I sat in the car and I was convincing myself that this was the right move and I was doing the right thing. So it is very emotional, because you get you're worried about your employees. You're wondering how your clients are going to be, because you don't have the control you had before. And I think that's really a big challenge.
It is.
And so it's being there, you're playing therapist, is what you're really doing for your client.
Yeah, I hear that frequently. And, and it's, as you said, more money, people, so many times you see somebody that's getting a really good price and they go, yeah, I know it's a great price. And it's really, I know what I'm going to do with it, and it's going to make my family so happy, and our security's been so good. So why don't I feel good about this?
Right.
Yeah, I should be dancing around saying I'm going to have all this money in the bank, and I don't feel that good.
Yeah. And I think part of it too, right, is a lot of business owners that's their identity, is their business owner.
Sure.
Especially if they come from a smaller town, because they're the guy that's the big employer, the girl that's the big employer, and everybody knows who they are. And once they've sold their business, they're just a guy with money.
Yeah.
And it's not that same feeling.
Yeah, they don't get to hear when they go to weddings and they hear that the cousins go, oh, there goes Joe. He owns his own business,
Yeah, exactly. And so it's it's also the ego that plays a part in that as well.
Sure. Do you have an issue that keeps coming up with clients that you could tell other advisors, the trick to flip it or get past it?
It's getting them to finally make that decision. I can tell you that right now we're sitting on 3 proposals that we've gotten verbals on, and just waiting for the signature and the deposit to come over. And even when they intellectually get there, emotionally, you still got to help pull them along a little bit further. So I think that's one of the bigger challenges. And the other part is the work that we do leading up to the close is important, because I know you've seen this dozens of times in your career. Owners get cold feet and they'll find a reason to kill the deal the last minute. And that just tells us that we didn't do something right along the way that happened when they get to the closing, because we want them feeling good when they got there.
Yeah. And I don't think you ever stop preparing them for the closing.
No, not at all. Not until the ink's dry and the check's cleared.
Yeah. All right, Joe, if somebody wants to work with you, how do they get a hold of you?
Sure. So my email is joe@blueskyexitplanning.com. And my cell phone is 407-488-3214. And I'd be glad to talk to any advisor if I can help them, make a meaningful difference in their business to help business owners.
That'd be terrific. That'd be terrific. I really appreciate you being on today. I hope you'll consent to come back as we move forward. This first round is a lot of introductions and a lot of talking about the business in general. We hope to dig into more issues and more problems and solving more things as time goes on. And you'd be a great resource if you'd be kind enough to come back when we ask.
I would absolutely love that. Look forward to it. And thank
Okay.
you for inviting me on today.
Really enjoyed it, Joe.
Same here, John.
Have a terrific day.
You too. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.